Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something I think a lot of you are going to find incredibly useful: a tactical system for learning new skills when you're already in a high stakes job. It's a real survival algorithm for anyone trying to build a future without blowing up their present. And this quote, man, this just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It's that tightrope walk. You're trying to learn the skills for the job you want, but you can't afford to get fired from the job you have. It's a very real fear, you know? One little misstep, and poof, everything could just disappear. So, let's start with a really critical idea. The source material calls it the ruin state. Think of it as a point of no return. It's not just a bad day or a missed deadline, it's game over, getting fired. And every single thing we talk about from here on out is built around one simple, non-negotiable rule: you have to avoid this state at all costs. Okay, so here's our battle plan. First, we'll talk about the hidden trap, the career kill switch that gets most people into trouble. Then, we'll lay out the new rules of engagement. After that, we get into the nitty-gritty, the daily playbook. Then we'll see how to turn all this risk into a massive asset. And finally, we'll talk about your very first move. All right, first things first, we have to completely dismantle the conventional wisdom that is frankly setting you up for failure. And it all starts with the idea of balance. Yeah, you've heard it a million times. Find a good work-life balance. But in this context, that's a trap. Trying to be a superstar employee and an amazing student at the exact same time just leads to you being kind of mediocre at both. The real strategy is what the source calls strategic asymmetry. It's not about doing both at once, but instead bouncing back and forth, intensely, between two totally different modes. So why is this so critical? Well, it's because your career is a non-ergodic system. I know, it sounds super technical, but the idea is actually simple. Imagine you're at a casino. You can lose a hand of poker, and it stinks, but you can always play the next hand. The past doesn't completely wipe out your future. But your career? That's different. One catastrophic loss, getting fired, can take you out of the game for good. There is no next hand if you hit that ruin state. Okay, so if avoiding ruin is the only thing that matters, what's the new operating system? It all starts with a cold, simple, almost mathematical way of looking at your job. Here it is. This is the core algorithm. And it's not about being fearless, it's about being incredibly smart with risk. You can go after any new skill, any new project, as hard as you want, but only as long as the chance of you getting fired stays basically at zero. It's simple logic, right? You can't cash in on an opportunity that requires you to survive if you don't, well, survive. Now, to put that algorithm into practice, you adopt something called minimum viable employment, or MVE. And listen, this is a huge mental shift. Your current job is no longer your passion project. It's not a craft to be perfected. It is simply the rent you have to pay to keep the lights on while you build your actual future. Your only goal is to pay that rent with the least amount of energy possible. So MVE has 3 simple tactical steps. First, you have to figure out the bare minimum. Excellence might take 100% of your effort, but just staying employed often only requires the right 40 to 60%. Second, you got to separate the loud tasks, the stuff your boss actually sees and cares about, from the silent ones that just fade into the background. You perfect the loud ones, and you delay or even drop the silent ones. And finally, you have to find your O-ring, that one single task that, if it fails, the whole thing blows up. You protect that O-ring like your life depends on it. Okay, let's get down to execution. How does this actually look on a day-to-day basis? Because this isn't just about willpower. It's about building a structure for your day that manages your focus and, more importantly, your energy. This is the pay yourself first schedule. You literally win the day before anyone else is even logged on. 5 a.m., that's your golden zone. Your brain is fresh, no distractions. This is for deep learning. By the time 9 a.m. rolls around, you've already invested in your future. Then you switch into survival mode. You knock out those critical O-ring tasks. The afternoon, that's the zombie zone for low-energy stuff like meetings. And you cap it all off at 5 p.m. with a quick, strategic summary email to your boss to manage their perception of you. And this all leads to a crucial decision you have to make every single morning. You have to ask yourself, am I in Employee of the Month mode or am I running Ghost Protocol? If your boss is freaking out and a deadline is looming, you go 100% into the job. No learning, just put out the fire. But if things are quiet, you activate Ghost Protocol. Do the absolute bare minimum at work and pour all that saved energy into your new skills. The key here, and this is absolutely crucial, is to never ever mix these two modes. All right, let's zoom out a bit. How do we manage this whole thing over the long haul and actually turn this crazy high wire act into a powerful asset for our career? This brings us to the barbell strategy. The main idea here is that the middle ground is death. Seriously. Trying to be a pretty good employee while doing a little bit of learning just makes you forgettable in both areas. The powerful move is to combine two extremes. On one end of the barbell, you have extreme paranoid safety with your day job. On the other end, you have aggressive, focused, high-risk learning. This is another huge mindset shift. The time that you're carving out, the work you're maybe neglecting, that's not a liability you have to hide. You have to turn that risk into a real, tangible asset. You're not slacking off. You're conducting strategic research and development for your own career. So how do you do that? It's simple. Don't just watch tutorials and read books. Build something. Build a small prototype that solves a real problem at your company. And then you show it to your manager. All of a sudden, your neglect of boring tasks gets reframed as high-value innovation. This becomes part of what the source calls your shadow portfolio. You are literally manufacturing the experience you need to get to the next level. Okay, so you have the strategy, you've got the daily tactics, you've got the long-term vision. There's only one thing left, and honestly, it's the hardest part. Breaking out of that cycle of anxiety and actually taking the first step. This entire system really hinges on getting your psychology right. You have to learn to detach from the outcome. Stop worrying about what if and just focus on what's next. You have to accept, and I mean really accept, that being temporarily mediocre at your current job is just the price you have to pay for a much better future. And most importantly, you have to remember that the only real cure for anxiety is competence. The more skills you build, the less you'll have to fear. So, your first action, it's not to build some giant, complicated plan or to analyze every single risk. It's way, way simpler than that. Your first move is to set an alarm. The entire system kicks into gear the second you decide to wake up and claim those golden hours for yourself. And so, this whole explainer, this whole system, it really all boils down to one final question. We've laid out the algorithm, the tactics, the mindset. The system is there. The only variable left in this equation is you. So, what is your first move?